Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Porman. At the Monroe County Public Library Board of Trustees meeting on November 20th, Library Director Greer Carson gave his monthly report.
We had yet another month of increased library card signups. That's 14 straight months, which is wonderful. We have raised the limit on our Blu-ray collection checkouts from 2 titles at a time to 7. And we've added video game controllers to our Library of Things collection, which is welcome news for all our console gaming patrons, particularly those who fall victim to the rage-quitting epidemic, which claims far too many video game controllers. CATS had a record-breaking production month covering no fewer than 60 government meetings in October alone. CATS also continued its election coverage with candidates on demand and continued playback of local candidate forums on our CATS channels. There are some great Vital Learner quotes this month, as always, but it's also worth pointing out that we're averaging about 8 new attendees at each of our monthly Vital volunteer orientations. Few of us attended the annual conference of the Association of Bookmobile and Outreach Services the week of October 14th. We're getting started on our new bookmobile purchase plans, which we expect to complete by the end of 2026. And this conference was a great opportunity to see new bookmobile vehicles, talk with vendors, and learn from other libraries who've recently purchased outreach vehicles, including bookmobiles. Our Friends of the Library group hosted a successful Power of Words event on November 9th, featuring authors Ashley Hope Perez and Jacinda Townsend. The authors spoke to a large audience at the Buskirk Chumley Theater about the power that stories can have to change the world. We then held a reception with the authors at the downtown library where they signed books, greeted fans, and enjoyed some music and food. Thanks to our Friends group and to our Power of Words committee for organizing this biennial event. Our next Power of Words event is slated for 2026. And finally, our downtown library security camera upgrade and installation project was completed last month. This brings our exterior security cameras at this flagship facility in line with our Ellettsville and Southwest branch cameras, as both branches have had those newer cameras in place since the completion of their respective building projects. An important note I want to emphasize, these cameras have improved directional capabilities, higher resolution, and increased storage capacity, but none of these features alters in any way how we use our security camera footage, as that's governed by our policy.
The board also heard from Payroll and Benefits Coordinator Mark Bryant about the 2025 employee benefits renewal. He said that the library provides generous benefits for staff members, which is useful for recruiting and retaining employees. The board approved the benefit renewal unanimously. At the Monroe County Commissioners meeting on November 20th, Jail Commander Kyle Gibbons spoke about the jail's annual inmate holiday meal. This year, female inmates were asked to reach out to their family members to ask for special holiday recipes. They had previously offered this for male inmates and wanted to expand the program. Family members answered back with lists of ingredients, oven temperatures, and reminders that there are lives and loved ones to come back to after serving their sentences. Gibbons read some of the response letters to the commissioners.
This is Grandma's stovetop green beans. Probably better than my beans, I'm not going to lie. She said, "This is one of my family favorites. We hope it will become one of yours too," which is pretty cool. We have a plan. And I talked to Jeff Cockerell as to the legality of it. We're trying to put together a recipe book. In some way, we will get that to the public. We're working the monetary angle on it. We can't make money on things that they create inside the facility. But we're looking for a way to get it donated to a women's shelter in the community, something they really want to do. So we're going to try to figure that out. But I wanted to share that with you guys. And you can kind of see, and I wanted it in their handwriting. I'll just hold one up, but everybody's recipes here. They're pretty proud of it. I'm pretty proud of it, actually. I can't even lie. It's good to see so many people work together, especially this time of year.
16 recipes were received in total, and all of them will be used for one big Thanksgiving feast and celebration. Commissioner Lee Jones and Penny Githens commented on the program and expressed their support for the Thanksgiving initiative.
It's wonderful to hear something so thoughtful being done for these people. I'm sure it's pretty bleak being in jail holidays and knowing your family is celebrating without you. And this is a way to bring a bit of that celebration to them and get kind of feeling. That's true. Thank you for doing it.
Thank you.
This is a brilliant, no-cost kind of thing to remind people that they are part of a community. And you know, you've educated me in various ways, and I understand that if you go back out into a community, you're much less likely to end back up in jail. And so for people to maintain the connections outside is just critical. So this, wow, kudos.
Next, the Health Department requested approval for a trademark license agreement to become an official Cribs for Kids partner. It would come at no cost to the county and would help gain access to safe sleep programming, educational resources, and infant safety products, and will address maternal and infant health outcomes in Monroe County. Commissioners Lee Jones and Penny Githens mentioned Indiana's high infant mortality rate and said that there needs to be more maternal and infant educational resources available.
Often people think that you don't really need to think too much about these things, but having good information can really make a difference.
Especially in Indiana, where we have such a high both maternal and infant death rate. I think this is a really critical program, and I really appreciate the fact that the health department found ways to do this at no cost to the county and our residents, so kudos.
Later, County Attorney Molly Turner King reported that the Opioid Settlement Application Review Board met on November 15th. The commissioners are now ready to approve $1,010,809 for the Opioid Settlement Fund. Commissioner Githens detailed the hard work and dedication it took from the organization and the community to bring it all together.
Locally, this work is being done by a combination of professionals and people with lived experience, and I hope that this money will enhance the good work that you all are doing. From listening to folks from across the country and around Indiana, I know that Monroe County is once again leading the way in this fight to save people's lives. We have long-term programs here in our community, such as New Leaf, New Life, and our specialty courts. They've been around for decades, and these are some of the programs that we're hoping to build on. The Indiana Recovery Alliance, our own health department, Courage to Change for Sober Living. These are all existing programs that have been shown to make a difference in this endeavor. And so I am so proud to support this and what's going forward. Sorry, Ms. Turner, came to make you wait through that. But it's, as Commissioner Jones said, it's been a long time coming. Several of us have worked on this for several years, and I mean it when I say we are leading the way again. And so everybody that's been involved in that deserves a big round of applause.
The Monroe County Commissioners will meet again on November 27th. The Bloomington City Council met on November 20th. The council heard an ordinance that would authorize the issuance of general obligation bonds in the amount not to exceed $4.3 million. City Clerk Nicole Bolden said that the bonds would be designated to finance capital projects through the city.
Ordinance 2024-24 to authorize the issuance of the City of Bloomington, Indiana General Obligation Bonds, Series 2024, for the purpose of providing funds to pay for certain capital projects of the city and expenses incurred in connection with the issuance of the bonds. The synopsis is as follows. This ordinance approves the issuance of general obligation bonds of the City of Bloomington, Indiana, under Indiana Code Section 364619 in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $4,300,000 in order to finance certain capital projects throughout the city.
City Controller Jessica McClellan said the objective would be to preserve the financial stability of the city and fund various city projects.
Tonight, we present to you for your consideration for approval the 2024 GO bond ordinance. The par amount of the GO bonds is $4,300,000. That is the project, the funds dedicated to the project list and the costs associated with issuing the bonds. So our main goals in this 2024 bond issuance is to preserve the financial stability of the city while also funding projects that are important to you, to the city, to the citizens, and to the administration. We have kind of two factors at play here in how we look at this bond ordinance. What do we say about our very high fund balance? That is the first question that I think would be on everybody's minds when we talk about this bond. The city is looking with these bonds currently to maintain that fund balance. We have a couple different levers that we have used so far. We have spent down that fund balance by $6 million with our budget that we approved. We'd like to maintain that level through the rest of the year. It's going to be good for responding to unforeseen needs or emergencies, unforeseen circumstances. It's good to have a balance in our general fund. And it's always good for the city to keep a healthy savings.
McClellan argued that the initiative would help the city maintain its tax rate while accounting for the economic growth that Bloomington has experienced in recent years.
So there's the fund balance, and there's also the desire and the fiscal. It's a good fiscally responsible plan for the city to maintain its tax rate. Our tax rate is dropping due to the growth in our assessed value. Our levy growth, our levy is how many tax dollars we can collect, we can raise. That's capped at 4%. That means that even though our AV grows at more than 4%, our tax collections will not grow more than 4%. And we need those tax collections to fund our recurring operating expenses. Bonding is the tool in our toolbox to fund capital expenses when our levy is not keeping up with our actual growth. We have a lot of actual growth in this city, real true economic growth, people moving here, needs really sort of like we're getting we have big city problems in sort of a small city or a large town. And so although we do have this cash, we're really looking for ways to fund capital expenses that is going to also be sustainable over time. Bonding is sustainable over time for this city. We cannot always rely on cash. We are always going to have to fund our transportation plan. And those projects just keep getting more and more expensive.
Public tax and finance lawyer Thomas Cameron with the law firm Quarles and Brady wrote the document included in the council packet. Cameron offered an overview of the bond ordinance.
At a super high level, our role as bond counsel is to ultimately, assuming the council approves the bond ordinance, deliver a bond counsel opinion that says the bonds have been validly issued under state law, they are exempt from federal tax law, and that they comply with the federal securities law. Those are sort of the three areas of law that apply when dealing with a bond issuance. This particular bond issuance is a general obligation bond, so it's backed by property taxes that will be levied and collected in the future. So it's not a revenue bond, it's not a water bond or a TIF revenue bond or something of that sort. This is normal property taxes being collected. The projects that would be funded by this are described in Exhibit A, and they go into some level of detail, and that is an exhaustive list of what could be funded with these bonds. The bond ordinance goes into a great deal of detail about the mechanics of the sale of the bonds and how all of the various state and federal laws will be complied with.
During his final comments, Councilmember Dave Rollo expressed concern about the lack of specifics regarding which projects could be funded through the bond ordinance.
What I am concerned about is a subject that I raised at the budget hearings, and that is that we don't have a final say, the specificity of particular projects under certain of those categories. They will go before the proposed Advisory Transportation Commission for their final say, but the council won't. So there's quite a bit of hazard as elected in this situation, because what I risk signing off on is an appropriation that the council will ultimately have no say on. And it's really not enough to refer to plans because they can be wildly interpreted. I mean, I hadn't anticipated the Hawthorne-Weatherstone project. It was a proposed greenway. It was a hash mark on a map, and I thought it would be some wayfaring signs and some, certainly a pathway which was designated between the two streets and so forth, but I didn't expect something of that magnitude, and neither did the public. So, and when something like that happens, I mean, it's been brought to my attention, and I affirm that there's a lot of capital needs that in the community that people witness and describe that aren't met. For instance, within, well, on the very street where the Hawthorne-Weatherstone Greenway is, the roadway is cracked and crumbling and should be repaved. So we're not paving the streets, but we're putting in greenway projects that I think are unjustified. And there's an opportunity cost in terms of those projects are needed somewhere else. And I think that the council should vet that process, actually.
Council Vice President Andy Ruff shared Rollo's point of view, saying that the lack of specificity gives him hesitation to support the ordinance.
I'll have to agree with Councilmember Rollo on this, and a little bit of what, Councilmember Flaherty apparently shares some of these general concerns about specificity and about just relying on, the difference between roof replacement at Woodlawn Bryan Park Shelter and having that be immutable in any way legally under this bond, and then having what we see down under the engineering projects. I like a lot about this approach with these bonds, and to pay for capital projects and to keep our tax rate, level, so we don't find ourselves short and then having to ask for increases later. But I'm just, I'm not comfortable with the lack of specificity, and then being held accountable myself as part of the body that, and how I voted. If something turns out to be something that I agree with Councilmember Rollo was vehemently opposed to, and I think was a tremendous missed opportunity, misallocation of scarce funds, just for one example, that the Hawthorne-Weatherstone Greenway. And I heard one of the some of the administration in the initial presentation mentioned something about Indiana Avenue possibly being a project that some of this might go to. And I have a lot of concerns and questions about what that's going to, in the end, turn out to be, that project, and that this might be funding that. And I might end up feeling the same way towards that as I did towards some of the other things I've seen. And so I'm just going to, I don't want to have to vote no, but I'm going to have to vote no on this.
The council voted 7-2 in favor of the ordinance, with Rollo and Ruff dissenting. The Bloomington City Council will meet again on December 4th. The Monroe County Community School Corporation Board of Trustees met on November 19th. Executive Director of the MCCSC Foundation, Cirilla Helm, gave a quarterly update on the work that they've been doing.
Other things that we've been doing through this past quarter is our fall grants. We finished up, and I want to thank all of our building representatives. We have one from each building who comes in. They read all of these. They help us with this and make some really difficult decisions on funding. We awarded a total of $52,485 this cycle, and that is giving us 13 grants that are in the elementary library space. So that was a total of $13,570. Our curriculum and enrichment grants, there were 12 of those, totaling $36,215. And our science and environmental, there were 3 of those, totaling $2,700. So congratulations to all of the faculty members who got those. Our spring cycle will be opening right after the holidays. So we bring that up right in the front of January. closes off, and we try to get that awarded right before spring break. So I encourage everybody to go back in for that. Scholarships will also be starting as we come forward, so I want to make sure that I go ahead and talk about that a little bit. We are projected to award $25,000 in scholarships this year. Those get awarded in May, but the applications and all of that process will come online starting early February. So I just wanted to go ahead and make sure that we get that out into our school community before my next quarterly report, which will be probably when we're awarding. So those are things that are going on.
Later in the meeting, the board heard from Interim Superintendent Dr. Mark K. Winston, who gave an update on redistricting efforts.
In February of this month, this board issued a resolution indicating their desire to have a study of redistricting as part of our effort to balance SES. And subsequent to that, Mr. Preston Smith was hired as an external consultant to come in and examine our boundaries, our data, our enrollment. And it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Preston Smith from Business Information Services to share with us the findings of his analysis and his report.
The consultant they hired from Business Information Services, Preston Smith, presented their findings that the enrollment in elementary schools is going to decrease over the next decade. Smith suggested that the board consider closing 1 to 3 elementary schools to increase efficiency.
Basically, what we wanted to start with in this project, it was not a pure redistricting project. We wanted to look at the demographics because it's important to figure out where your enrollment is headed before you can accurately draw any kind of redistrict lines, talk about any kind of merger. You've got to understand whether or not if the enrollment's going up or down in order to figure out what your capacity of your buildings are in order to make the whole system work. So that's why the first thing I'm going to approach is going to be the demographic study. We use several different sources for this information. We use vendor data, much data from the state of Indiana, the city of Bloomington. We used the U.S. Census. We did interviews, labor statistics. And what we found is that basically your enrollment's been fairly flat line for the last 30 years. So your enrollment has changed very little. In fact, in 1989, you see 10,279, and today about 10,200. So in 40 years, it's been very stagnant. Our data projects that every indicator is that your enrollment is going to decrease over the next decade, and the question is by how much. We estimate it could be as much as 4.7% decline or as little as a 3% decline. But every indicator is it will go down.
Dr. Winston gave an update on the Childs Templeton merger and some of the complexities of the project.
To say that merging schools is full of complexities is definitely an understatement. Throughout our engagement in our planning process, our teachers, staff, and families readily shared a number of challenges or opportunities that needed to be tackled. Dr. Finley just highlighted a handful of complexities that we needed to solve. To be clear, for every complexity, there is a solution. As educators, we are beyond adept at successfully finding solutions to the complexities that we face in our schools each and every day. I want to talk just a moment about decision point complexities. I've included this slide specifically to highlight some of the most essential decision point complexities that we have encountered on our journey. On the left-hand side of this slide, you will see 3 identified complexities that require an answer because the answers to these complexities directly impact other key complexities. 1, grade level configuration, 2, building selection, and 3, implementation timeline. Building selection and grade level configuration decisions directly impact the 3 items in the green box on the right because of the corresponding cost implications. At the October board meeting, the CSO architects outlined several considerations for renovating 1, both, or neither of our 2 buildings, while also providing the anticipated cost estimates. In addition to potential renovation costs, my team is projecting costs associated with transportation and staffing that must also be considered. When you look at the building renovation, the transportation, and the staffing, there are potentially significant costs involved in at least 2 of those 3, but potentially the 3rd one as well.
The board also heard information on transportation logistics, food services, and staffing considerations for the merger. Following the new information, board members said that they would need more time to consider the Childs Templeton Elementary School merger. The school board will meet again on December 17th. At their meeting on November 19th, the Bloomington Board of Public Works discussed the ongoing downtown construction projects. The street resurfacing projects of downtown and West 3rd Street began in early September. Public Works Director Adam Wason provided an update on the construction before thanking Milestone for being flexible with the town schedule.
You know, projects like these we knew would have impacts, but Milestone's done everything they can to try to expedite the project the best they can and work with some of the requests for changes in schedules that we made and such. So I just want to thank them and let the general public know that, you know, we're heading towards the end on those projects. Appreciate everybody's patience, but in the end, we'll have some really great infrastructure improvements there. So
the projects are wrapping up and should be completed by the end of the year. Bloomington resident Joe Davis spoke during public comment, representing taxpayers' objection petitioners to oppose moving forward on designing the convention center expansion.
In the design of the proposed mini Lucas Oil Stadium over there across from the convention center, and there's a more appropriate place for something like that to be built out toward where the highway is. Actually, North Park is a good location for such an endeavor.
The North Park property between Ellettsville and Bloomington was recently selected as the site of the new Monroe County Jail. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.